takes to build a strong body. And for the residents of Miami-Dade, getting your COVID-19 vaccination is an important part. Help everyone stay safe as we continue to fight the spread. And we can protect those most vulnerable around us. With easy access to vaccination locations and the growing ability for more people to be protected, it's our best shot to keep moving forward. It's our best shot for a strong, healthy community. For more information, visit miamidade.gov/vaccine.
WDNA 88.9 FM into the Frost Jazz Hour here this fine Thursday morning in February. I'm your host, Philip Capuzzi. Pleased to be with you, as always, from 11 a.m. until 12 noon for the Frost Jazz Hour as we bring in some of the premier ensembles at Frost, as well as some faculty members and students in their own situations. This morning we have the former one of the premier ensembles at the Frost School of Music within the jazz program, the Stamps Jazz Quintet. Really excited for this performance from this group, the new class of the Stamps Jazz Quintet, as the old one graduates and moves on to grad school and professional play, and et cetera, et cetera. Going to speak with the bassist Aidan McCarthy a little bit later in the program, but I wanted to start off with the music. They're going to start with a composition from one of the great composers in jazz, Wayne Shorter, entitled Black Nile, here on WDNA 88.9 FM, the Frost Jazz Hour. WDNA 88.9 FM, that's Black Nile by Wayne Shorter, as performed by the Stamps Jazz Quintet here this fine Thursday morning. I'm your host, Philip Capuzzi. Pleased to be with you. We'll be with you for quite a bit longer here in this hour. That was the first tune of this really exciting program. You heard from Joshua Pollan on trumpet, Adam Lord on tenor, Devin Shaw on piano, Aid McCarthy on bass, and Jacob Smith rounding out the ensemble on drums. That's the Stamps Jazz Quintet, the new class, like I said at the onset of the program, as the old class graduates from the Frost School of Music and moves on to future endeavors. And as we move forward with the program, we're going to step into a really interesting original from our bass player, and I'm curious to hear kind of his beginnings in composition, but we'll speak with him in a little bit. So without further ado, we're going to step into Manzanita, the composition by Aidan McCarthy, who's on upright bass here this fine morning. You're listening to WDNA 88.9 FM, the Frost Jazz Hour. Manzanita live and direct here on WDNA 88.9 FM, the Frost Jazz Hour, as composed by Aidan McCarthy, the bass player of this wonderful Stamps Jazz Quintet ensemble. And yeah, Aidan, if you wouldn't mind coming up for a bit just to speak for a moment. And in that time, to mention the musicians that you're hearing from live and direct from the Jazz Gallery here on the Frost Jazz Hour: Joshua Pollan on trumpet, Adam Lord on tenor saxophone, Devin Shaw on piano, and Jacob Smith on drums, and of course, Aidan McCarthy now joining me to speak. He's on upright bass and also composed that last tune. And for any of you guys listening on 88.9 FM or WDNA.org, and if you're interested in seeing the video component that we do have a video live stream for this show every week, streamed live on YouTube.com at our channel WDNA Radio, which you can subscribe to, and also on livestream.com. So if you're unaware of that, tap into that, and you can see the video component of these wonderful programs, which are also archived as well. So with that, Aidan, thanks so much for being here and sharing your music here this morning.
Oh, thank you so much for having the Stamps Jazz Quintet here. It's a pleasure. We have so much fun here.
Yeah, it's a great honor. It's a great honor. So I like to ask this to most of the people that come in, but what drew you to the music? What brought you to bass as well? Myself being a player, I'm just curious kind of how you came to it. And then I guess moving on, how you came to be, so involved in jazz and contemporary improvised music. Obviously, it's a lot to talk about, but as much as you're willing to share.
Yeah, of course, I can share. I really have roots as kind of a rock guitar player, you could call it. I started on guitar, and that's what I did from, I guess, mid-elementary school through maybe like halfway through middle school. And I was really into that and, just wanted to be a little kid, wanted to be a rock star. And I went to a couple of summer music camps, and there was a guitar player that was fantastic. His name is Isaac Coyle. And one year, he came with an upright bass. And he was like, yeah, this is like the instrument that I'm really checking out right now. And to me, that just blew my mind. Like, oh, here's this guitar player who, made the switch. And I was really into music, like the music of Frank Zappa and King Crimson, and some really, I guess you could call more heady, intellectualized sort of music. And I was finding it really hard to do that in the rock world. And all the people who were into jazz, in middle school seemed to be the people who could like really play music. And I really wanted to play music. And so I was really drawn to the bass through that individual, and through kind of Miles Davis's Kind of Blue was the first thing I checked out. And that really drew me to things. And yeah, I've been doing this jazz, bam, improvised music thing since then, yeah.
Very nice, yeah. Yeah, and I feel like I can definitely see the Miles influence in your composition as well. So I'm curious, how did you come to composing? How long have you been writing?
I've been writing off and on, maybe for about 4 or 5 years now, but I was poor at completing compositions, shall we say. In fact, this kind of fits into that category. I wrote the melody early on in the pandemic, so I would have been like a junior in high school, but never wrote changes. But I wrote the changes this past December, so it kind of was completed over multiple years.
Right. Yeah, it took some time to put together.
Yeah. Yes.
No, yeah, as it should be in some situations. So then, now transitioning over to this ensemble, did you know any of these cats before you got together to play, or was this the first time meeting them to be in this group together?
I knew Jacob Smith because we did the famous Vale Jazz Workshop together, run by Mr. John Clayton with a phenomenal faculty. We did it online though, mid-pandemic, and so we never met in person, but we'd put together virtual recordings together. And I hadn't met Josh, Adam, or Devin until I got down to Florida. We'd talked over the internet, knowing that we were going to be in this group together. But yeah, first time meeting was down here in Miami.
Nice. Wow. And then what was the first rehearsal like, and then how have you kind of developed as a unit to this point, would you say?
Oh, goodness. I mean, first rehearsal, I think we all come from quite different places, I would say. And I think that kind of reflected itself in like the first rehearsal sort of is, we hadn't really, really spent time together musically or personally. But I mean, I will say I felt immediately that this group was really, really special. And it kind of already felt special how the music felt, and then also knowing that we would have the next 4 years together to play as a unit. So I will say the first rehearsal is just phenomenally exciting, nerve-wracking also, I shall say,
Of course,
being like, okay, these are the people, and everyone's just phenomenal, every one of these musicians is just incredible. So intimidating, super fun, and just inspiring and, inspirational to know that I have the time with these gentlemen that I do.
Absolutely, yeah, and you make a great point. That's the large benefit of being, in the Stamps Jazz Quintet, is just the longevity that you have with this ensemble, the consistency. That I feel like is the one difficult thing about some ensemble, the general ensemble situation at Frost is, you get into funk fusion or odd times, et cetera, and it's super cool for that one semester, but, it's only the one semester, and then you kind of have to move on. So it's nice in some ways to keep jumping around, but I feel like if you really want to get after something, it's helpful to kind of have that long amount of time to really get inside of each other and try to develop like a collective concept together.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I guess one other thing I wanted to ask quickly before we go to break, what do you perceive as kind of unique benefits or challenges of a quintet situation versus, more of like a piano trio or quartet situation?
I think that with like a trio in particular, at least for me, like the communication between the members of the trio in question just flows so freely, and it's so smooth just because there's less brains and instruments involved in making trio music. But then when you go out to a quintet or even a quartet, there's more minds involved, there's more moving parts, and it's like this in-between of like a large ensemble where it's kind of this bigger whole sort of thing, I would say, between like the bigger whole of like a large ensemble with like, say, like 4 horns and like the smaller format. So I guess I would say it's like being really nimble and communicating and being connected all the time is a big deal for the quintet, like maintaining that sort of a communication and awareness of each other, but then also, taking care of business in your, 20% of the quintet. It's tricky, but, we have precedence. I mean, the quintet is such a storied unit. For example, this semester, Professor Etienne Charles has us really checking out the music of Nicholas Payton. And we will be playing a number of his later on. So we have precedents that we can base our work off here.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for speaking. I really appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
Great discussion. So we have quite a bit more music to go, but we're going to step aside briefly for some important messages from the station and come right back with more live music from the Jazz Gallery here on the Frost Jazz Hour. I'm your host, Philip Capuzzi. Thanks so much for tuning in to this point in the program. You are hearing from Aidan McCarthy as we just spoke. He's the bass player in the Stamps Jazz Quintet, which is playing this morning. And like I said, we're going to step aside briefly and be right back. You're listening to WDNA 88.9 FM. And welcome back into the Frost Jazz Hour here on WDNA 88.9 FM. Thanks so much to everyone for tuning in to this point in the program. You're listening to the Stamps Jazz Quintet, just stepping out of an interview with their bass player, Aidan McCarthy, who composed one of the tunes that they're playing in this set here this morning. And also just to mention the upcoming sets that we'll have in future weeks. Next week, bringing in actually a good friend of mine and wonderful pianist, Bo Cornelius, for a solo piano set. Very much looking forward to that performance and to speaking with him about some of his background in the music. And then foraying into March, we have the Creole Ensemble on the 3rd, and then another wonderful pianist from Frost, Connor Rohrer, coming in on March 10th. Very excited for that. So with all that said, we're going to step back to the current program, the Stamps Jazz Quintet, with the next tune, The Impaler by Jeff Tane Watts, here on the Frost Jazz Hour. The Stamps Jazz Quintet, live and direct on WDNA 88.9 FM. The Frost Jazz Hour, Joshua Pollan on trumpet, Adam Lord on tenor, Devin Shaw on piano, Aid McCarthy on bass, and Jacob Smith on drums, rounding out the ensemble. I'm your host, Philip Capuzzi, pleased to be with you as always from 11 a.m. until 12 noon for the Frost Jazz Hour. And be sure to stick with the station after this program for the Latin Jazz Quarter from 12 until 3, which I'll also be hosting. Always a pleasure to transition into that show. Out of this one, that last tune that you heard, The Impaler, composed by Jeff Tane Watts. And now we're going to move forward with classic composition by wonderful pianist and composer, one of the absolute masters of the music, Thelonious Monk. The tune Pananica here on the Frost Jazz Hour, WDNA 88.9 FM. Yeah. Panonica live and direct here on WDNA 88.9 FM, the Thelonious Monk composition as performed by the Stamps Jazz Quintet that just reduced to a trio for this tune. It's Devin Shaw featured on piano and joined by Aidan McCarthy on upright bass and Jacob Smith on drums. I'm your host, Philip Capuzzi. Thanks so much for joining us here for this program this morning, whether you be listening on 88.9 FM or WDNA.org, or perhaps you're watching the live stream on YouTube.com, WDNA Radio being our channel that you can subscribe to keep updated with all the content that we put out. All of these shows as well archived on that channel, or you can check out livestream.com as well for the video component. So before we get to the last tune, Nicholas Payton tune, I wanted to bring up Joshua, if you wouldn't mind, just to speak a little bit. And And just to mention the upcoming programs once more, next week we have Bo Cornelius coming in to play a solo piano set. That's February 24th, as always at 11 a.m. And then the week after that into March, we have the Creole Ensemble. And the week after that, another pianist, Connor Rohrer, coming into the Jazz Gallery to perform some of his music. So with that, Joshua, I welcome you onto the program. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I wanted to start with the same question that I asked Aiden. Just what's your background in the music? What drew you to it? How did you come to the trumpet? How did you come to jazz? Just some of your background as a musician.
Yeah, so music's been around for my whole life. I started at the age of 2 playing drums, little African drums, with the River City Drum Corps in Louisville, Kentucky, and from there, I transferred to playing piano when I was about 5 or 6, and I did that for about 2 or 3 years. And then when I got to middle school, that's when I finally picked up the trumpet. And originally, it was because my dad, he played trombone in high school and college, so I wanted to be like him. So, but the trombone was a little bit too big for me to handle at that time, so that's why I chose trumpet, and so I stuck with it ever since. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. And with this ensemble, when I was speaking with Aiden earlier, he mentioned that you guys this semester are kind of pulling a lot of influence from Nicholas Payton and his approach. So I'm curious, what are some of the elements that you guys are pulling from? And also, are there other groups that you guys try to pull influence from, or last semester that you were trying to kind of get inside of their sound? Or was it more so of a large set of influence pools in the past?
I think it's a large set of influence pools. Definitely, when we started meeting for the first times this semester as a group, Professor Charles really had us checking out multiple quintets, maybe like the Cliff Brown Quintet, the Nicholas Payton Quintet, of course, and several other different influences, so that we could kind of see our own musical influences and those people, and then try to collectively come together. So I think it's been a large process, but we're working it out. So
yeah. Absolutely. And you mentioned that you're from Louisville originally?
Yes, Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay, cool. So I'm just curious, what are some of your first impressions of Miami and Frost? This being your first time being down here?
Yeah, I mean, I love it here. It's honestly the best place to be musically right now. Great people to work with, great musicians, people who are really pushing you to be better, people who have an appreciation for Black music and will not shy away from telling the truth about where this music comes from and its origins and things like that. So it's been a really powerful and life-changing experience for me.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's important for you to mention that as well with regards to the history of the music being so connected to Black culture and everything. I appreciate you mentioning that. So I guess the last question before we get off to this last tune, where can we see you guys perform next? Do you have anything coming up, or if you have anything in general that you want to point the listeners to, the floor is yours.
Yes, well, tomorrow we are actually playing at the Jazz Forum
Nice.
at the Frost School of Music, so we will be in Foster 206, I believe, and we'll do an hour set there, so come on out. And we have several other performances this month and next month. For example, the All Stamps concert, where each Stamps group is featured. You'll get to see us there and then work with all the Stamps groups of Frost. And then we also have a group, we also have a combo set going up to New York. So we will be doing that around March the 20th or 21st. So be sure to check that out. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, sounds like a good spring break there. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
That's awesome. So yeah, thanks again for speaking with us, Josh. I really appreciate your time and also you sharing your music and everything on the air. So now as we get to this last tune, we're going to hear the Nicholas Payton composition Back to the Source from this wonderful ensemble. I just spoke with Joshua Pollan on trumpet. He's on trumpet in the ensemble. Earlier, I spoke to Aiden McCarthy, who is playing upright bass, and also composed one of the tunes earlier in the set. And the other three musicians in this ensemble, Adam Lord on tenor saxophone, Devin Shaw on piano, and Jacob Smith on drums. So with that, we'll step into the final selection for this morning, Back to the Source by Nicholas Payton here on WDNA 88.9 FM, the Frost Jazz Hour.
Bye.